I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. Sergeant Lundy, would you have Monument Police Explorer Troop 2010 post the colors, and then will you lead us in the pledge?
Mayor, thank you. If the audience would rise for posting of the colors and the Pledge of Allegiance. Color guard, 10, cut. Forward, march. Left, 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 left. Ready, halt. Detail, post. Colors. Present arms. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, on. Out, face. Forward, march. Left, 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 left. Thank you.
Please be seated. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson?
Here.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Here.
Trustee Koopman?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Here.
Trustee Stevens?
Here.
Okay, before us we have a consent agenda and our agenda. Is there any modifications to the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to add a discussion item to the agenda. After number 7, after the resolutions, a discussion item regarding code enforcement.
We have a motion to add a discussion item of code enforcement. Do we have a second or any additional motions?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes, that motion passes 6-0. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. First item on the agenda, recognition. The recognition of the Monument Police Explorer Troop 2010. Chief Shirk.
I'll have Sergeant Lundy start.
Okay.
If I could get my advisors up here too, I just want to recognize them for all the work they've done. I just wanted to give a quick 4-minute presentation on what the Explorer program is, some of the things that the Monument Police Department is doing to engage with the community and some of the services we provide. Sometimes people don't know that this is an option for their kids, and so I just want to kind of go over what we've done and why specifically they're being recognized tonight. I'll let the chief touch on that a little bit more, but this is post number 2010. Few in numbers, but they've had some remarkable achievements during the time that we've been able to work with them. They go to a National Explorer competition, and what this is a program for youth that are high school kids ages 14 and a half to 21 to learn about law enforcement. They do ride-alongs, they get training, they get to feel out to see if this is a right career path for them. In addition to that, we also provide them leadership and character training as well. So this national competition is it was held in Grand Junction this year. hundreds of explorers from scores of troops across the country all meet to put their training to the test to see if they measure up against each other and in functions of law enforcement. So they do traffic stops, they're graded on tactical movement, they're graded on incident command, they're graded on being able to speak with a hostage scenario, and all kinds of scenarios that some are higher stress than others, and they kind of see how they stack up against other troops. And this year, second place overall nationally in incident command, third place in 2017 in tactical building searches. That's one that when Mom had a tactical team, we prided ourselves on training them. And then first place in 2016 with prisoner search. I want to stress what a remarkable achievement those kids have made. You know, you think about small, and whenever they win something, it's like, monument, where's that? But I mean, we have such a small unit. I mean, Aurora's sitting behind us with 30 explorers, and we're there with 5 or 6 or 7, and we're taking home hardware. So that just speaks volumes to the quality of kids that we have in the community and the quality of parenting that they're receiving. So this is a picture of them with their awards. Not everyone could be here tonight that wanted to. Part of the reason is our kids are really busy. A lot of them have extracurricular activities. They're in sports. They're engaged, and those are the kinds of people that we want in the program. Here's Deanna Pruitt. She's not here tonight, but she's conducting some traffic stops. Dean's writing a ticket, although he's a nice guy, so probably got a warning, right? Yeah, there's Ms. Brooklyn there doing the same thing. So they're being judged. This guy here is a law enforcement officer who's been selected as a judge to help out at the conference, which these two were as well. This is Greg Malikian, was a former officer with us, and Detective Amanda Molnar. They were able to take the kids out there this year, and they did a really good job at supervising them and training them up prior to, and they're the reasons why they were so successful. Scenario-based training. So here's Kari with, I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a domestic violence in progress call. So her job as cover officer is to make sure that hostilities don't flare up after they've been de-escalated, and their communication skills is put to the test in that type of a situation. This is stuff that they're being trained on well beyond their years in development and some kind of a weird rock ritual there. I don't know what to say here. I don't know what's going on.
Casual Friday.
Oh my gosh.
So
Team building.
quality. I was thinking quality blackmail material, but we'll call it team building. Physical fitness is important as well. Our explorers are held to a standard of a good GPA. If they stop dropping performance in school, then they're encouraged to leave the program until they get their grades back up. And physical fitness standards as well. More traffic stuff. That was slow. There's Greg Malikian judging some of the competition there.
Again.
So this is one of the more higher stress functions. They're one of the nighttime tactical last year, 2017, that they placed in, and this is a little bit higher stress. So the simulation could be something like a active shooter inside an apartment complex, and the whole place is filled with role players, and things are going off, lights and sounds, and they have to maintain their composure, communicate, work together as a team, and move tactically and solve the problem. So here's an example of their tactics. This is sound tactics. You have a rear guard, you have the team leader here, you have somebody focusing on this door and another person focusing on point downrange. So these are the kind of skills that they've been taught by police tactical movement that kids their age just don't have another opportunity to be able to do. She's just making those aviators look good. The officer down drill, same thing. A lot going on, and they have to multitask. They have to save the officer while addressing the suspect and assessing the nature of the wounds and try to render some aid at the same time. So to be able to put that all together and to be able to score highly and beat others, that's the other thing I want to touch on real quickly in my last couple of minutes here is that we don't just teach them police training and police tactics and police procedure. We work very hard to teach them, as you saw, a sense of community, a sense of pride, and a sense of service, something greater themselves, and they've succeeded remarkably well in that. Here's an example. There's a program, Shop with a Cop, and Stand on Patrol, and our explorers are right there. They do a lot of the, for Stand on Patrol, they do all the box wrapping, all the deployment of the boxes, and all the gathering of the gifts. If you don't know what that is, the chief dresses up as Santa Claus every Christmas time, and we drive around and deliver kids toys that they wouldn't normally be able to have on Christmas, and it's all toys donated by you folks, by the community, and it's just overwhelmed every year. We're like, we might not have enough, and then we have stacks and stacks and stacks. Just remarkable, the generosity. But these kids are instrumental in helping that program succeed. They also have done honor guard services with us for the fallen veterans. Here's some of them on Santa on Patrol, bringing some smiles to some kids' faces, handing out some goodies. There's the chief and Mrs. Claus there. So again, I can't stress enough how proud I am of my instructors here and the training that they've been able to impart to the kids, and for the remarkable job that they've done over the past few years since we've been working with them. They're top notch. So whatever you guys are doing as parents, just keep doing it, because this is what you produce, and I just want to say thank you to you for letting us share your kids' development. So can we give them a quick round of applause? Everything to add before the chief takes over?
Could we have Cadet Commander Madison Steen was not able to be here tonight, but she is one that's turned 21, will be leaving the program soon, but I think she might even join as an adult advisor. Could I have Cadet Corporal Deanna Pruitt come up? Not here. Hannah Carlson. And
vacations. It's Labor Day vacations.
Okay. Well, anyway, the 2018 Law Enforcement Explorer Post Advisor Association of Colorado, called LEPAC, conference was held at Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction, July 8th through July 13th. Over 200 youth ages 15 to 21 from law enforcement agencies encompassing the entire United States, Western United States, were in attendance to complete in law enforcement scenarios developed from real-life police calls. Troop 2010 has brought back trophies and medals for the past 3 years. This year's our cadets placed 2nd in incident command, 4th place in nighttime tactical events, in 5th place, because they split up our explorers into different groups, we also took 5th place in incident command. One of our 5 cadets that attended this year, Commander Madison Steen, was nominated to attend as part of the Explorer Leadership Team. Commander Steen assisted post advisors and LEPAC board members with assigned tasks during the conference week. Our explorers and explorer advisors displayed professionalism, dedication, integrity, and leadership qualities, all of which reflected positively on the Monument Police Department. And with that, I would like to give the Chief's unit citation to our advisors that attended and to those cadets that attended. And I'm going to hold off on actually handing them out because Santa, with his poor glasses, discovered a mistake. So I will correct those and get them out to the advisors to hand out. So with that, can we give our explorers a hand of applause?
Thank you, Chief.
I was actually told that was the real Santa.
I know, I didn't see him
I'm a
in the
little
picture.
disappointed now.
Next item on the agenda, proclamation. A proclamation proclaiming September 10th through the 16th, 2018 as Cities and Town Weeks. Mr. Sheffield.
Sorry about that. Trustee Bornstein was reading tonight. I'm here to read the proclamation of Cities and Towns Week for 2018. Whereas municipal government is the government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents, and whereas municipal government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities, and whereas municipal government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits, and whereas Colorado Cities and Towns Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by municipal government in our lives, and whereas the Colorado Municipal League's member cities and towns have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information, and whereas Colorado Cities and Towns Week offers an important opportunity to convey all the citizens of Colorado that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument, Colorado hereby proclaims September 10th through the 16th, 2018 as Cities and Towns Week in the Town of Monument, and encourages citizens, municipal government elected officials, and employees to do everything possible to ensure that this week is recognized and celebrated accordingly, and all municipal governments to actively participate in Colorado Cities and Towns Week. Proclaimed this 4th day of September 2018.
Would you please give us a brief overview of what you guys are planning during that week?
Sure. We didn't have any special activities planned for the week, but
Okay.
we do have an open house at our big water plant down the road on Saturday, September 8th. And we're also doing an open house at the Streets and Parks facility on Jefferson Street. That will be from 8 to 2. I think we're gonna have some kind of lunch things at the water department and ice cream at Jefferson Street.
And that's open to the public for
Yes,
everyone to
please.
attend.
I'm here to invite all of you and all of you members of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Sheffield.
You're welcome.
On behalf of the board, Trustee Bornstein, we proclaim that, just the title.
Proclaiming September 10th through the 16th, 2018 as Cities and Towns Week.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Next item on the agenda, presentation, Tri-Lakes Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Terry Hayes.
In the event that they have it, the water department's on your website or on your Facebook page. So I recommend you share it. We did, and encourage you everybody to do it. So it's kind of fun. Anyway, I am Terry Hayes with the Tri-Lakes Chamber of Commerce. And I promise this won't be long. I know 4 of you have heard this probably a couple of times already, but you know, I try to change up things a little bit. But I just like to come before you guys every single year and just kind of give you a brief overview of what we do with and for the community. I don't get into, you know, chamber membership or anything like that. I'm just talking about just Town of Monument types of things. So our first 3 hats. We do wear 3 hats. The Tri-Lakes Chamber of Commerce provides leadership to support, improve, and of course promote existing and new businesses. We provide services, information, and programs that enable our member businesses to be successful, which is very important. We achieve this through many different resources: networking, communication, small business development, demographic information, providing seminars and training. We don't just work with our members, we assist and work with all businesses in our community. Productive, profitable businesses are, of course, good for the town. Our other hat we wear is Visitor Center. So our physical location, as you all know, is right downtown in the Town of Monument building. And so we are the area's Visitor Center also. So we are able to bring people in And we provide information about lodging, about maps, about restaurants, shopping, different events that are going on. We have people that are just passing through. You know, maybe they stop at us and they thought we were the Colorado Springs Visitor Center already. And believe me, we capitalize on those people. Like, hey, it's lunchtime. I think there's like 4 restaurants right here you need to go eat, or there's a few places that you need to go shop. The other 2 biggest areas of people we have coming through are those that are brand new to the area. You get that look in their eyes as they come in like, we've unpacked, now we gotta explore. And so they come to us for what they can do and what they can see around the area. And then we get a lot of people that are considering moving here. So then of course we talk about all the different areas that they can move to and why they potentially might think that they should because of all that we have to offer. As I mentioned, our location downtown is perfect for those that seek us out. We had a building, our old building is next to the Village Inn, and people would come in, we'd give them their information, and we'd say, you gotta go downtown, check it out. And we would see them get in their cars and go hit the freeway. It was very dejecting. The nice thing here is they come, they park, they come in, get their information, and guess what? They don't go back in their cars. They go walking down the street. So I think the location that we're at is really perfect for that because we're able to actually encourage them. Because once they see, you guys all know, downtown is really cute. So once they see that, then they want to go explore, which is great. So the third hat we wear that we took on about 1.5 years ago is the Economic Development Corporation. This was previously an all-volunteer organization, and really we've outgrown the volunteers for this particular area, so they really needed someone to take it over that had staff that can answer questions, you know, the 9 to 5, do some research, that kind of thing. So we agreed to take it over. We have been much more involved with that this past year, as I'm sure you've probably noticed the increased amount of times that I speak before you for or against something. We work very closely with the town's planning, which I guess they have not presented anything to you guys because they're not here tonight. But we do work very, very closely. Jennifer and I meet all the time, and we talk about different things that are coming up, including things that might be coming down the pipeline or just people that are interested in coming to the area. So maybe we have a business that's thinking about it. And Jennifer can give her, you know, the facts and figures and all that kind of stuff, but we can present with a lot more information also. So we actually work together and make a really great team. Sales tax dollars, as you know, play a huge role in funding our town, so we want to make sure these businesses are here and that they are providing that funding for the town to be able to do what it needs to do for its citizens. We also work closely with primary businesses, and primary businesses are businesses where more than 50% of their income comes from business outside of the area. So it's always important to a town to bring in new money. And so once those primary businesses are in the community, then that's where your secondary businesses come in, the restaurants, the retail, those kinds of things. So it's very important for us to make sure that our primary businesses are healthy, that they're not leaving the community. Johnson & Johnson is a perfect example of a primary business. Obviously, most of their sales are from outside of the area, but they're economically very important to the town. Goals for 2019. For the chamber, we continue to be a community hub. We are still we're trying to find room for a 2019 budget to rehab our old building, to use it as a second community space. Our building that we're in right now, we have a large community space in there, and it is filled all the time. And unfortunately, we have to turn away some people because we just don't have the space. We also feel it's one of the best uses of our building, because again, we're bringing in people from other areas that might not normally come to downtown just because they have a meeting in our building. So in an effort to maintain the quality of life in the Tri-Lakes area, the Chamber is also involved with and plans events with the community that celebrate the character of the Tri-Lakes area and enhance the quality of its residents. In addition to those that we host, we also work very closely with Madeline, as you know, puts on a lot of events in the town, so we work very closely with her and help her out. And we're going to talk about events in just a moment. Our third goal is to strive to represent the members of the Chamber and the Tri-Lakes community in regarding to local affairs, government, and education interests by being a point of contact in each of the areas regarding communication, discussions, and representation. We just want to make sure that a lot of times people aren't sure where to go for the answer of things. And so we want to make sure that they can always try to come to us, and if we don't have it, we absolutely at least know the people in charge and can direct them as to where they need to go. I'm on numerous committees for the school district, including facilities and business related groups. I'm on the El Paso County Parks Board. I am an elected official for the Tri-Lakes Monument Fire Board, along with Chief. And I was part of the coalition to widen I-25 along with the stakeholders group. We had many meetings. I'm not gonna say I'm happy with the way it ended up, but there were some things that actually were worse than what they're predicting to do. So, you know, I think it still was a good thing to be in part of it. I am past president of the Southern Colorado Business Partnership, which is a group made up of other chambers and business-oriented organizations like the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and the BBB. I also sit as an ex officio on the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce Board, and the main reason for that is from an Economic Development Corporation standpoint. They have an entire department for EDC. So anytime we run into something that we may not have experience in, or we want to find out, hey, what do you guys do down there? They have been great working with us, and so it's like having a whole additional resource at our beck and call, kind of, and we don't have to pay for it, which is nice. Newest to my titles as of last month, I am the honorary commander for the 10th Mission Support Group at the Air Force Academy, working with Colonel David Kincaid. The Air Force Academy wanted to get more involved in the community, so they selected about 15 of us in the Pikes Peak region to be honorary commanders, and we're each attached to a different command. And so the goal is not only to get us more familiar with what they do, but it's to get them more familiar with what we do. And they are in our backyard. So they're cadets, especially we just had Parents Weekend up there. We want to make sure that they know that, you know, they can get in the car and drive north too, to come to restaurants and go shopping and not just drive south. I am sure there are more committees that I'm forgetting, but honestly, you name a meeting in the community and chances are I attended. I feel that I spend my time on these committees to ensure that the chamber and the EDC is there to help in any way we can. If we're not sitting at the table, then we're not always going to know what the questions are and what the problems are and how we might be able to solve it, or at least if we're not involved, we can put these two people together to help solve their problems. I'm honestly not putting this out here to toot my own horn. I'm just wanting to just let you know my commitment to the community. I spend a lot of evenings in these meetings and a lot of time during my day, but I feel it's extremely important in my position to be involved in all of these things, and it all is for the benefit of the town and to keep Tri-Lakes area strong. Visitor Center, our goals are very small goals. Our brochures and business card holders are all completely full, so again, it's finding money in the budget to get some more. I've been wanting to, for a couple of years now, try to stay open a half a day on Saturday to help serve, because if I'm working on a Saturday, there's numerous people that try to come to the door hoping we're open. So it's still a goal of mine. I'm just having a hard time finding someone that might want to volunteer there 4 hours on a Saturday. You know, like 9 to 1 would be my preference. And if I could find 4 people that will rotate, you know, just once a month, then I think that'd be perfect. So if you know anybody, let me know. We also want to expand our exposure. I work very closely with Madeline and the downtown initiatives and projects. I think she's talked to you guys about that before. We reach out to our local population to remind them of all the great restaurants and businesses. There are a lot of people in the Texan Creek area that sometimes don't come to this side of the town because they don't know what we have there, and vice versa. We want our people to go over there. Why go to Home Depot and on Academy when it's better to come to our Home Depot and let us keep the sales tax dollars here? And we talked about primary businesses, which is, from an EDC standpoint, is a very, very important thing for us to continue to do. I feel like one of our most important roles this year has been education. So one of the things we're going to be hopefully launching around October time is I'm going to be working on and working with Tribune to do a series of education articles. And I'll be working very closely with Jennifer in planning also on this. And those are to educate our community. So we have people that will say, why is the town selling all their empty land? Well, I'm going to help educate them. The town doesn't own all of the empty land that's around. It's privately owned. So why are they getting mad at the town for something that they had nothing to do with, that they didn't own in the first place? Talking about why are there so many auto places in the area. We really don't go out and seek them. You know, they have people that are much smarter than us that do the numbers, and no one's gonna spend $1.5 million to $2 million to open up a facility like the Les Schwab's that's going in without knowing that our community can support it. And then the third thing we want to talk about is how can we attract things that people want. That's something that we really haven't gotten into yet because we just haven't had the staff to be able to do it, but it's something that's definitely my goal for 2019 is to find out what can we attract and then let them know what we can't. Like our number one thing that we get requested for is still a Chick-fil-A. Well, there's a Chick-fil-A in Northgate. We don't have the demographics, so I just need to let them know, I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen. At least not at any time soon, and I think if it gets to the point we're big enough for them, then people who live in here may not want us to be that big. So, you know, just educating on why things are in why businesses are in certain areas and why they're not in other areas. And just kind of help let them know so that when they get really frustrated, I get it. I totally get frustration, but it's because they don't have the knowledge behind it. I mean, they can still be frustrated, but I think frustration with knowledge is much easier to swallow than just plain frustration. All right. We also want to educate our businesses on the enterprise zone, which the enterprise zone can save a lot of money. The enterprise zone is a state incentive which encourages new and established businesses to locate and expand in economically distressed areas in the state. You might think economically distressed, that really doesn't describe us very well. However, we are a community that's very expensive to build in. We are way more expensive than Northgate, and so a lot of that is why our previous, Danette Lilja, who was the runner of the EDC prior to me, she was able to get that designation through the state. What I don't know is how long it's good for, but while it's here, we want to take advantage of it, and we want to be able to have our businesses take advantage of it and save some tax dollars. So it can be hiring new employees, it can be for capital investments, training for employees, rehabbing old buildings, and also conducting research and development. Those are things almost all the businesses have to do. So to just help them get a jump start, then we want to be able to let them know that this is available, and a lot of people would not. So that's where we educate them. Let's see. Lastly, we also want to make sure that the businesses and restaurants, I kind of touched on a little bit, that the ones that are here, let people know they're here. So we hear from people saying we want every chain available here. And then I also have the complete opposite, that we want no chains and we want only mom and pops. So we try to educate them on the things that are already here that they actually, mine was not that big, but you'd be surprised. We're our commuter town. So commuter town means they get in their car, they go out, they put their blinders on, they go to work, and then they come back. If they haven't even gone out in our community a little bit, they may not know that there's a ton of mom and pop restaurants here. It's not all McDonald's and Jack in the Box. Well, we don't have Jack in the Box up here. Taco Bell. You know, so let them know the smaller little restaurants. Let them know the individual businesses that are mom and pop stores that they can buy individual gifts where people aren't going to normally see them anywhere else. This right now is an extremely busy time for us, but like I mentioned earlier, our goal is towards the end of this year and the beginning of 2018 is to really take a look at what we can do for attracting what our residents need. So there might be some holes somewhere. So our facility, I touched on that a little bit. Our facility is a great room. We can comfortably seat 50 to 60 at tables, and then we can comfortably seat about 75 to 80 without tables, just seated there. So we let that use, obviously our members get to use it for free, but we also let all nonprofits in the community use it for free. And we're very lenient on that word nonprofit. So this is just organizations that aren't making money. So we have a lot of HOAs that come and meet in our building. We've had Charlie's Little League come and meet the parents. We've had a ton of different organizations that use our facility. They have nothing to do with the chamber. It's just something that's our commitment to the town to always be available for that. And like I said, we have run into a problem of running out of room sometimes. Somebody will call for a particular date and they'll go through 3 or 4 dates before we find one that's finally open for them to come to. We do it as no charge, and that's very, very important to us. We also just have pictures there of our breakfast. We do a networking breakfast, and it's at capacity right now, which is great. And our monthly education series, however, is not at capacity because we can seat a lot more people there. It is open also to anyone that wants to attend. This has nothing to do with being a chamber member. This has to do with all businesses that are interested, or anybody that's even thinking about going into business can attend our meetings or attend our monthly education meetings. They are bookkeeping, social media, for small business, and we even have class coming up end of September, early October about how not to burn out, which when people own a small business, that is something that's a real concern. And if you're burning out in your business, chances are it's affecting your personal life, and that's just not good all around. So we want to make sure that our business owners are happy for them to be business owners. This next one, you have a list in your packets so you can look at it more, but these are just the facilities, and these are all non-chamber members. These are communities, well, no, they're not all chamber members, I'm sorry, some of them are. But these are different organizations that have used our facility throughout just up to August. We already have a 57% increase in the use of the room. And one of our biggest things that take up the most time and effort is VITA. VITA is a program run from, help me out.
Volunteer income tax assistance, so they help low-income individuals who are eligible do their taxes for free.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of the organization that's run under.
United Way.
United Way, thank you. Yes, it's United Way. So they will start, in fact, I have a meeting on Thursday with them. They will start in January, and they will use our room 3 days a week until tax time, depending on when that is. So that's also one of the main reasons we want to get our other building up and going, because during that time, we have made the commitment to them that they can use it, and it is of no charge. But we just want to make sure that we provide that community service to the community. And like I mentioned before, hopefully a lot of the people that are coming down for these meetings are people that have never either been to downtown, because we draw people from the Springs, we draw people from Douglas County. The Alive at 25 is actually a Douglas County program, and a Douglas County sheriff comes down and runs it out of our building. And a lot of times the parents are dropping their kids off for it, and then they go eat somewhere. So it's just a great opportunity for us to introduce some of our businesses and restaurants to community. We also are an annex for the Small Business Development Center and SCORE. Both of those are organizations that help small businesses, and mostly for free. SCORE is 100% for free, and the SBDC is mostly free. And so instead of having people have to go down to the Colorado Springs area and meet with them down there, they each have time in our conference room once a week, and it's a dedicated time that they can meet people in our facility. So now we're going to get into our events that we run that are for the community. So 4th of July, everybody's familiar with 4th of July. It's a very long day. It's about a 16-hour long day on our feet. It's a great community effort. There's, I think this last year, with the addition of some of the kids areas, there were 9 nonprofits that came together to put this whole entire day together. And we all coordinate together very well. So our part of that particular day is the street fair and the beer garden. So the street fair is right in the middle of the town, and then the parade goes around us, and then we started a beer garden. Madeline and I actually started this 5 years ago, when we went several years without fireworks. So there was nothing to do in the evening for anybody in the Tri-Lakes area. So it's her and I that decided, you know what, we're going to do this. So she takes on the music, and then I take on everything else in the beer garden, so that people don't have to just go home at 3 o'clock after the street fair ends. And what if you don't want to drive down to Memorial, but you just don't quite want to go home yet, because you still want to have a little more festivity. So at least there's live music until, we went until 6 o'clock this year. It is a family-friendly beer garden. So in fact, it's really not even a beer garden. It honestly is just a park with live music, and in the corner they sell beer. So we want to make sure that it always stays a very family-friendly. We got kids and strollers, and everybody's have fun. We just card and band the people that want to have a beer or two. The next one we do is concerts in the park. There's been concerts in the park. It's one of my favorite events to do. It was probably about 4 years ago that we agreed to take it over when the Historic Monument Merchants Association was unable to run it anymore. So we agreed to do it, and we agreed to do it. This is the only event that we do that we don't make an income off of. My goal is at the end of the year that we haven't lost money, that we're breaking even. We just do it as our community service. We just do it as because people love it. And we had probably 800 people at our very first concert this year. I've never had that many at our first one, because it takes the first one to happen, and when people go, oh man, I didn't know those started yet. And then they come to second, third, and whatever. But they were ready this year. They were there, and they showed up in spades. It was amazing how many people were there. It is free, it's entertaining, and the whole entire thing costs us a little over $12,000. And we provide professional musicians, professional lighting, and professional sound. So we get approximately $4,000 in Pass the Hat donations, and then we raise the other $8,000 through sponsorships. And every single one of those sponsorships for the last 3 years have been from our own chamber members that have supported to have this event keep going on. In the future, next year, this series, in addition to a few other events, potentially could cost us a little bit more because of town and park fees. So our concerts in the park is probably going to cost us just shy of $2,000 more next year if all of those go through. So if anybody knows anybody that would like to sponsor and help us out next year, I would be welcome for that. And then our next event, which is coming up here in a week and a half, is Bines and Brews. It is on September 15th, and I meant to bring you a flyer and I didn't, so I will email you guys the information about it. This is an event that we invite our local Colorado breweries, and then we also invite our other 3, I'm going to say alcohol purveyors, which is our Ice Cave, our 300 Days of Shine, and then also Lee Spirits is going into downtown also. And they're at Craft Gin, so they will be there also. We limit it to attendance. We only sell 350 tickets total, and then the rest of the people there are volunteers that have helped set up or break down, and are all the people that are pouring the beer. We purposely keep it very low key. We play jazz music, we don't have rock music blaring. Jazz music, we have buckets of free soda, free water, because if somebody's gonna drink tastes for 4 hours, we wanna make sure they're hydrated. And it's right there, so they don't even have to think about buying it. We have food vendors that are there. And the great thing about this particular event is we have a lot of the brewers, because that's a very distinctive science, making beer. I know nothing about it, but so a lot of the times they are attending, so the people that are also attending get a chance to talk to them and say, what are your processes, and they get to learn a little bit about it. So it's really just a fun, low-key event. And it's a fun one that we look forward to each year. And then lastly, for all of our community events, we are always looking for volunteers for help. We have 3.5 staff members, including myself. We're a very small office, but we have a ton of volunteers, and we are very, very grateful for them, but we're always looking more. And I would like to thank the mayor and his wife, because they have volunteered several times with us, including being out in the street on 4th of July at 5:30 a.m., checking vendors in for us. So I just want to say thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that help. I also would like to publicly commend the town's Public Works Department, because they have been fantastic to work with. As you can imagine, we have to deal with them a lot, especially with putting up the barricades and our concerts in the park and everything. And James Schubar has been absolutely fantastic. And so we love working with him. I love it when I call him, hi Terry. It's kind of like, well, what do you need now? But he is always there, and he's always very helpful. And so the entire Public Works Department does a really great job for us. So I just want to publicly say thank you there. There's one event that I forgot to add, and that's our Community Business Expo. We did this 2 years ago, and then we stopped a year because we just didn't have a good location for it. It was down at the Summit, and we wanted something up here in our community where people could go to. So this year we're teaming up with the YMCA. and it's actually going to be at the YMCA. So they had done a little business expo, we had done a little business expo, and now we're putting them together for a bigger expo, and we're going to have at least 100 vendors there. And so it's free for the public to attend, and it is going to be on October 18th. So we're going to get the word out here pretty quick on it, so anybody can attend. It's just 4 to 7. Just get to know a lot of your local businesses. Because we're a chamber, we get a lot of calls saying, who do you know that does this, or who do you know that does this? Well, this is a great way for some of our residents to actually get to know some of our local business owners and find out for themselves what they do and have that personal connection. We actually do a ton more events than this, but of course I'm only covering the ones that we do strictly for the town of Monument. And so I just wanted to cover just that part. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Trustee Clark?
Yes, I do have a couple questions. I really appreciate your presentation. I'm wondering if you have seen an increase in Monument businesses growing from all these efforts.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, economy has something to do with it. I'd love to take 100% credit, but no. So one of the things that when we moved downtown, we heard from the downtown merchants that they saw a definite difference in uptick in foot traffic.
Well, I understand
right,
that,
but in general.
I'm saying, has it been able to create an atmosphere where more businesses are coming to Monument and
yes.
placing their businesses here?
Yes. We are, most of the time when a facility goes empty, it does not take very long for people to then want to move in. The old post office sat empty for years, as we all know. And now it's going to be a really nice event venue, but wouldn't you know, for this last year, we have had probably no less than 5 people that would have wanted to come in and just buy it. And they said, where were you 3 years ago? That would have been great. So the thing is we are gaining a reputation on being a good place as far as our community is concerned. And part of our job is to make sure that we maintain a good reputation for doing business here. And that includes a process through the town, that includes a process through the county. And all of the little things that they need to maneuver. I'm working with Jennifer right now. If a business comes in right now to the town, and this was a case for Lee Spirits, they worked in Colorado Springs, they don't know our rules and our regulations up here. There really is no piece of paper that you give them to say, you gotta do this, 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 and this. So right now, Jennifer and I are working on that together so that we can hand them something so that they know what they need to do and what their time frame is, and trying to make it a little bit easier. Like I said, the price up here, if someone's gonna build from ground up, it's expensive. Our water taps are expensive, and just construction costs are more expensive, but we just try to let them know, you know what, when you're done, it's worth it, because we have the community that wants to come out and support you.
Well, I agree with you that it is expensive, but it's even more expensive in Denver, Castle
Absolutely,
Rock.
yep.
So this is a great community, I think, to move to and have your business in. How much of a percentage do you think of the members in the Chamber of Commerce actually are a business here in Monument?
That I don't know, but I can get it for you. What we also have is we have a large amount of businesses that the physical location of the businesses are outside of the town, but they live in the Tri-Lakes area. So we have businesses for all different kinds. We have people that they're physically located here and then they live outside, or they're physically located here and they live here, and then the opposite, they want to support the community where they live even though their business may be somewhere else. So the reason for joining is not to necessarily support their business in the Springs, but it's more to help us support our community here, because their home prices are tied to how well our community does. They want to make sure the school district stays well and healthy, because that's tied to their home prices. So they have a very personal reason for wanting to contribute to their local community.
So do you know how many members of the chamber there are right now?
Yeah, we have almost 500.
500, and so out of 500, could you kind of guesstimate how many are businesses in Monument that are members of the chamber?
I have a nice little pie chart that I haven't looked at since January. So I'm trying to remember. I can absolutely get it to you. It's maybe 20, 30%. It's not a huge amount, because remember,
30% of the chamber is businesses in Monument?
Mm-hmm.
Only 30%?
Well, we're at Tri-Lakes Chamber of Commerce. So we operate in northern El Paso County. So you are talking Monument, Palmer Lake,
Right.
northern Colorado Springs. So there's a lot of businesses that aren't within the monument.
So would that include the businesses along Northgate, for instance?
Yeah, but that's not monument. I don't consider
Right.
those monument. I'm only talking about physical monument address. But
Okay.
yes, we actually actively go after businesses that are from the Interquest exit north. And the reason for that is a lot of our residents here, when they're shopping, most of them head south instead of north. And so we want to encourage them to head south, because if they're not going to do business in our community right here, we want them to stay south, because then their business stays within El Paso County. And we want those tax dollars to stay in El Paso County, and we don't want them to go to Castle Rock and Douglas County.
Do you think that there would be a possibility of a greater effort to get that percentage up higher?
Of monument?
Mm-hmm.
If I had more staff, absolutely.
You should talk about that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Any other questions from the board? What was the date on the Business Expo again?
October 18th. It is 4 till 7 at the YMCA, Tri-Lakes YMCA.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that time.
4 to 7, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
At the YMCA.
Yep. Totally kid friendly. You can bring your kids. You know, if you pick them up from daycare or whatever on your way home from work, bring them on by, check out a few places, and go eat somewhere. Spend some money.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
You're welcome.
Item number 6 on our agenda, ordinance number 172018, authorizing a direct loan to finance improvements to the water system. Ms. Smith.
Thank you. At the last board meeting, when this was originally brought forward, there were some questions raised, very specific questions from the background paper that was presented. I did check and with our bond counsel, who's Kutak Rock, Tom Keltz is the actual person, and Jim Manier with Capital Investment Improvements. And the answers to your questions I did send to you last week. I can go over them in detail if you want. But everything was answered that you had a question on, and we rewrote the ordinance. We had Kutak Rock rewrite the ordinance and take the emergency clause off, with the understanding that if it is not passed as an emergency ordinance, then the rate could possibly go up, although it is locked in until, I believe, the 14th of September. And that's the 3.4% rate. So we did take the emergency ordinance off. The other questions you had were answered. If you want more specifics on that, you could let me know. I'm again bringing this forward for the board to pass so that we can get the financing for the enterprise fund.
Okay. Is there any additional questions or a motion on this ordinance?
I do have a question also.
Okay.
So on that email that was outlined in blue that you sent back, I don't remember the gentleman's name who wrote this.
Probably Jim Manier.
Yeah, he said there's an important concept in the loan called a rate maintenance covenant, where the town and the enterprise will specifically promise to set water rates and charges every year so that annual revenues after the payment of O&M costs will be at least 125% of the annual debt service amount. And for this calculation, sales tax revenue and depreciation expenses are excluded. Annual budgets should be developed with this covenant in mind. The town will also have some flexibility to prepay and restructure the loan. So my question on that is actually to the town attorney, if you have a moment. Is the legal authority of the trustees able to be forwarded to the lender so that the lender can use such authority to direct the board to promise to set water rates and charges every year? And does the lender then control the statutory town rates, water rates for 15 years until the debt is repaid?
I can't answer your question here. That would have been something that would have been helpful to send to myself and Pam on August. I don't know actually when this was sent. I received it, I guess, on August 5th when he said that you are agreeing to raise the rates.
every year?
Actually, I can answer it not from a legal point, but just from a borrowing standpoint. If you were to look at your water master plan, it includes rate increases every year. This is a reserve that would have to be put forward, which means that 25% in addition to what the annual payment would be would have to be set aside as reserves. In the past, when we've had water debt, that's with the Water Enterprise Fund, not 2A, that has never been an issue. And it's a formula that I can write out and show you, but it does state that if you miss those reserves, if you can't, for instance, at the end of 2019, which we wouldn't have any payments due till 2019, so at the end of 2019, if we don't have 125% of net revenue, that is that is equal to, if we don't have net revenue equal to 125% of the payment, then in 2020, you would have to talk about raising the rates. So yes, it is in there. Any debt we've ever had, whether it's general obligation bonds or notes, this specifically is a note for the enterprise fund, all of those debts contain those types of
Covenants?
restrictions that you have to show. And you can go back to some of the older audits and see where we've got reserves for debt. And in fact, at the very end of some water bond debt for the Water Enterprise Fund a couple of years ago, when it was struggling financially a bit, we didn't meet those, but it was the end of the bond, which was a 25-30 year bond. So they didn't say anything about it, but it does have to be done, and yes, that does mean that you would have to look at the rates really in arrears, just about, but I would mention that your water master plan has provisions that we should be raising the rates a small percentage every year, and that hasn't happened. We raised them the first year we
Been
had
almost
it.
3
I think it was
years.
2016, and we haven't raised them since. And
But that chart doesn't account for the additional.
I'm sorry.
I said the chart that you're referring to in the Water Master
Yeah.
Plan doesn't include this unforeseen $1.8 million loan
Well,
repayment.
those projects are in the Water
Yeah,
Master
they are.
Plan. So
So
technically.
you're saying it wouldn't go up any more than what's already projected?
Correct.
And I think that's something that was also, not to jump in, but it is relevant to the current topic, which is, were you able to figure out what that projected first year increase would have to be? I know that was
I
something
did
Trustee
not, and I
Bornstein-
apologize, because I know Trustee Bornstein asked for it. I've been off several days the last couple of weeks due to illness, so, and I just absolutely spaced it, but I can go back and figure that out and let you all know what that looks like, because we were going to do kind of a history of the revenues to see where it was, and then do projections to see what it has to be. But what we have to have for a net revenue after not counting sales tax would be 125% of the payment. And the payment's projected to be
215?
So I can run those
215
numbers.
for
I
the year?
apologize, I have not done that yet.
215 annual.
Okay. How many people do we have paying utility bills?
There's about 1,002
Oh, yeah.
accounts.
About 1,002.
Last time I looked, there were 1,002.
Rounded off to the nearest, okay.
And so would
One
this
of the
be?
few numbers I can keep in my head.
Would this be an extra fee on the bill? Is that how that would work?
It would mean that we would have to manage our water cost moving forward like
Yeah.
all the communities around us do. We tend to neglect that, and our last raise had been the first one in how many years? Do you recall?
A lot.
20?
But this comes out to about based on the $1,000, 1,000 people, this comes out to about $18 a bill.
So it'd be like a usage fee or a?
No, it wouldn't have to be a rate increase.
A rate.
It
So
wouldn't be a
$18
separate
a
fee.
bill on an average bill of $35 to $45 is a significant jump.
I think just to add to that, and I think the mayor and I think the mayor pro temp were here during this, but our last rate increase was more so throwing spaghetti to see what would stick, because the rate was substantially high, which was unacceptable. Then it came down to a midpoint, and then it came as a buy point. And this concerns me, because what's going to happen when we do implement this? Are we gonna go, well, we gotta do this, because again, it's affecting how many houses? How many residents?
1,000
Yeah,
900 residents.
1,000, and I mean, I'm on the record, I've got some very big concerns about this, because we're still here for the people, and
Right.
I don't like surprises, but I saw the numbers that came during our last increase, and yes, we did need one, I'm not gonna challenge that, but the way it was done was literally crazy.
Well, and that's what we don't want to get back into, is having.
And I agree with you 100%, but we had 3 people sitting in a room, which I will not name any of them, and let's go for this, that doesn't buy, let's go for this, okay, we're gonna take this. So what will happen here? I don't know.
So, but the way you were explaining it, we don't have to raise water rates unless we fall below that reserve.
Correct.
Or the moment that they suspect that we would fall below that reserve, it says immediately in the verbiage in there, as far as not wait to an annual audit before you determine that. So the second that they determine, and I think that's Trustee Clark's concern, is do we have the legal authority to give up our authority to set water rates? And that's essentially what we're doing with this loan, is we are giving up our legal authority to set our water rates for our residents.
Exactly. And I also read in the ordinance that if we are in breach of any of these covenants, this loan goes up to 8%. And they can actually call for specific performance. And one of the covenants that they indicate that they want us to comply with is basically to have an outsourced CPA firm giving audits and holding us accountable with receipts given in a timely manner, reports given in a timely manner. And if we breach that by saying not giving it in a timely manner, then they can call that note due and payable with specific performance, which gives us 0 time to get it refinanced anywhere else. Were you aware of that?
They're talking about the annual audit.
I read it very
And that's what they
thoroughly.
look at, and that's where the reserves, and the auditor says, yes, you've met your reserves. And that's where they would come back and say, well, you are in breach or you are not in breach.
No, I think that if you'll take a look at, let me just go there real quick.
Ms. Smith, what you're saying is this is standard practice
It's
as far
not.
as what we would be audited against?
No, it's not standard practice at all.
Is where it discusses audits, if that's what you're referring to.
No, I'm not referring to the audit. I'm referring to the fact that in this loan, they want an independent CPA examining our invoices.
Where is that?
That's the annual audit.
Yeah, that's the audit. That was my interpretation of that.
No,
Which
hang on, let me
is a
go through my notes
CPA?
real quick and find that.
So
It's an
audit
independent
being made
CPA
final
firm.
included
Right.
in the
Wasn't
general-
that
Which
our
who does our
gentleman
audit?
that audited us?
No,
He's not a CPA?
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they want their own independent CPA firm to audit us and be in charge of those receipts and ask for reports. We are going to have an independent CPA firm outsourced
I'm
cost.
sorry, that's not.
Where is
I
that?
didn't read it that way.
I know, I'm gonna find it, guys.
As I said, if you go back to some of the past audits, you have to go back about 5 years or so, you'll see where the auditor shows the reserves and reserve for debt payable in the next year and the next 20 years. And that's part of the
That's
audit.
under billing and enforcement, number E.
I'm sorry?
Billing and enforcement, number E. Let me go there. Read that.
You have a page or a section?
12, page 12, it's right over after where it says, do an audit.
You know, just a comment, I think the mayor's correct that we're gonna have to look at the cost of water and increases, because when the last one was done, but I think we have to be very cautious that those increases don't occur with our backs against the wall. And then the greatest respect, because I've heard too much about the water master plan, and until proven otherwise, there's only one Bible. This is a document that changes, and it's changed over time, and it's a guideline. It is not the direction of the town forever. That's why there's a board, a mayor pro tem. Things change. But just because it's written doesn't mean that's the direction that we will follow.
Well, I think this loan has a lot of hidden costs in it that Ms. Trustee, Mayor Pro Tem Elliott, that's for you. You asked for the specifics. There's a whole bunch of specifics there for you. But I don't think that this loan is in the best interest of the town at all.
Are there any other questions?
I guess I won't ask all the rest of my questions because I should have asked it prior to.
It just makes it easier, in my opinion, so that we can have the answers before we get to a meeting, so that the board can take
Understood.
action instead of tabling something for questions to be answered.
I'll send them all over to you then. I wasn't aware that that was the process. My apologies.
Oh, no, I'm not dictating any process. It's just when it's things that are complicated questions that need to be answered by bond counsel and the financial advisor, it's easier to loop them all in if we can do that before a meeting, since they're not present at your board meetings.
And is it permissible for the Board of Trustees to talk to these people directly?
If you want, I can ask them to come to the board meeting. They will charge us, but, you know, I could ask Mr. Peltz or Mr. Manier or both to come to a board meeting if you would like.
But there's no individual interaction allowed?
There shouldn't be, no.
Okay.
Because it should be a total board question and answer period.
So, Ms. Smith, if this rate, being that the word emergency was taken out of the terminology, so this rate of 3.4% is good until September 14th, assuming the ordinance passes, what needs to be accomplished by September 14th in order to get this rate?
This ordinance needs to pass.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it does not pass by September 14th, then you run the risk of the rate going up or going down. But it seldom goes down. But, you know, I'm not saying you have to pass this tonight. I'm saying if you don't pass it, the water fund's already put forth about $700,000 or so towards this project. And the water fund, financially, the cash will be impeded greatly for 2018.
At a certain point, we'll have to stop, you know, with the work that we're doing. So what is the cost of not acting on this? I guess Mr. Tharnish is not here tonight, so.
No, he's not. He's in Boston taking his daughter to college.
Okay.
Depletion of the
I'm sorry?
depletion of the 2A fund?
No, this cannot be 2A money because
Oh,
it's not new.
sorry, not 2A.
Well, I would
And
challenge that and look for a separate legal opinion
wasn't
on
the
that, because
question.
we have received legal advice that states that it goes back to water system improvements. And this would absolutely be a water system improvement. So that would be challenged as far as a legal interpretation of the initial ballot language that includes this, which would absolutely be applicable in my view, as well as the legal interpretation I received. I do have a question, not to interrupt, Mayor Wilson.
Well, let
I didn't
Trustee
know.
Stephen
I didn't
get
know.
his
Done?
question answered first, which was, what does this do to?
No, I'm fine as far as my question. I think.
Okay.
The fund
Yeah.
is depleted, I think, was
Yeah, I think the
answer.
fund, once the fund gets depleted, what is the impact, I guess, of, you know, not having funds? You know, I mean, we have a fiduciary responsibility. I know that when I was talking to Mr. Tharnish a few weeks ago, he said if a major breach happened, like to the water tank and the roof broke or something like that, the state would intervene and they would mandate, you know, repairs, and we would be fined, and, you know, all these kinds of complications. So I guess my concern is there's a cost of not acting as well as a cost of acting. And so I'm just trying to get a handle on what the cost of not doing something and what the risks are if we choose not to move forward on this.
Well, the cost per se of not acting is, you can't put, because of Tabor, you cannot put more than 10% sales tax revenue into an enterprise fund. So you can't augment, and I'm just talking to the enterprise fund, we'll have to get clarity again on the 2A. So you can't put more sales tax in to make up any differences. So you could lose your enterprise fund status, which would breach the covenants of the ordinance. It will, what has happened in the past is what the auditors call the to from, when one fund pays for another because we use one major checking account. The general fund for several years supplemented the operations of the water fund. And the water fund owed the general fund in excess of $400,000 a couple of years ago. And now it's broken even again, as Mr. Logan told you all when he presented the audit. You know, the cash flows in both accounts have improved dramatically for the 2017 audit. So there is that. You're running the risk of, excuse me, of it being cash poor, basically. And that'll have to be augmented through the general fund. If you have to augment that through the general fund, then that makes the general fund projects money tight. The majority of the general fund is personnel and benefits. If you pull capital out of that.
So you're saying we don't have the ability to stop on some of these projects?
No, actually, well, 4 and 5 treatment plant is almost finished. We've got 700,000 through today, or through the end of August, sorry. I forgot I lost a month there, September's now. But we've paid to date almost 700,000. The amount for the project's $924,500. We could halt and not do the building rehab, which is another $150,000, which I'm not sure what the impact of that would be if you completed 4 and 5 and then you didn't do the building rehab. That creates some problems. And then the other project is the booster station upgrade, to upgrade the pump that pushes the water up to the big tank. We wouldn't start on that, and we, in fact, won't start on that until the financing is approved. And that comes in at, $625,000. And those are 2017 numbers, so it's probably a little higher than that. So that's your basic cost would be that the general fund would possibly, not definitely, but possibly have to augment the financing of the water fund as it did in the past. And you could have a higher rate waiting to result in a higher rate or not. And it's up to the board. I mean, if you choose to not pass it or you don't want to finance it, it's going to create a little bit of havoc in the cash flows. But and as far as questions, I mean, when we had the meeting last time, and again, I apologize because I didn't get the rate structure to Trustee Gorenstein had asked for, to show you all what the rates have been when we did the increase and what the projections for 2019 are, and what we would need to show as reserves for this note. But other than that question, the other questions that anybody brought up at that board meeting, the last board meeting, were answered by the council and Mr. Manier. So, I mean, it's really kind of up to you all.
Just a question, has Mr. Thornish submitted any numbers on what his projected increases would be for late 2018, 2019 on water rates for the citizens here on the west side?
No, he is not.
So.
Question regarding financing, really paying for projects. Is it standard that we are, like the well 4 and 5 is almost done, is it standard that we're ordering and executing these projects prior to having money to pay for it?
That is not how I would have done it. It was passed in January. It was brought forward by the town manager
That-
at that time.
That we would seek a loan to do it.
And it was passed in January with the intention of getting financing. And then we passed the ordinance to say we were going to do financing and could pay the water fund back, and then we passed the ordinance for key government financing.
So for my peace of mind, our standard
Normally-
process is we don't begin projects or almost complete projects without the money to pay for them.
I would strongly advise against that,
I would agree.
but it
But that's not.
wasn't my.
But not our standard.
No.
You've been here
Normally-
longer than anybody else. Is that our standard practice?
Normally, when we, like, if you look at the CIP fund, which this is the first year we've broken that out separate, all of those projects, it'll show what's financed and what's not. And anything that shows as financed, the financing should go through before the project contract is awarded.
Okay.
I did not realize it had been awarded, quite honestly, and that's why we got such a late jump on starting the financing, because I started getting the bills for the project going,
So we've just been paying it, hoping
yeah.
something balances out.
Hoping that we'd approve the loan that we said we would.
Well, hoping. I mean, it's not gonna be the end of the world, you know,
There-
but it's not gonna be pleasant for me. I don't know. It's gonna be tough. And, you know, if you want, I can ask Bob Cross, or if you'd rather me ask someone else, about the 2A funds, and get clarity on that again, because that was a year or so ago, maybe 2, that we were talking about that.
Okay. And I guess maybe, and I think when he came to present to the board, I think that's something we've talked about as well with the new board seated, possibly having
Yeah.
someone come, just kind of a Q&A session, but I think it comes down to verbiage as well, as not necessarily the 2A, but where's the original 1% sales tax from the '89 ballot initiative? And is that reverted back to? And that's something, it's black and white, but
Well, the
it's
1%
legal.
from the day it passed, I sent you the spreadsheet from health, basically, it was like that big, that showed where that 1% was from 1989 forward through 20.
Well, I know where the 1% is.
But
Where
your question is how
I
much?
it's what it can be used for
Yeah.
now, currently, now that the town hall's paid off, et cetera, so.
So we can have, I have found in the past that having Bob Crossa, who's the water attorney, and Bruce Lytle, who's the water engineer for the town, and they both have been for as long as I mean, years and years and years. And they're both extremely good about explaining the complexities of the enterprise fund, the 2A fund, the water, the use. I mean, so we could have them come and clarify some of these things for us. That's usually something Mr. Tharnish would take care of, but I can reach out if you want to have them come to a meeting and you know, do a little water workshop thing. I don't know. I think that Mr. Tharnish is kind of waiting for the full board to be seated, but.
I think it makes sense to get a interpretation on what it can be used for, especially if we have a cash-heavy fund that could be utilized to pay for something where we're giving up our legal ability to modify our own rates to a lender. Yeah, it makes more sense to me.
I can just shoot them an email and see if there's a simple, easy answer to that question. And then, again, we need to do the water workshop thing.
And the one request this trustee be looking for is the worst case scenario from Mr. Tharnish on what a proposed rate would be for late 2018, 2019 for the residents of, again, the west side. The worst case scenario, what that increase would be. Worst case. What he would foresee it to be.
Well, it depends on the years, you know, wet year, dry year,
Wet
all
year,
that.
but you're saying if we had a really dry year, like we did
I
a
know
few years ago.
I know there's so many variables.
Yeah.
We've been through these for a couple of years, but the
Yeah.
worst case, what would he see that as?
I'll get with him when he'll be back Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, because
And we'll-
he's probably he's the one who knows that.
Yeah, I mean, when we do the projections and start working on budget stuff, which we're starting to work on, we'll look at, as we project into next year, are we gonna think it's a wet year, is it gonna be a dry year, is it?
Whenever we had the increases and we were getting water, nobody was using it.
And then it was a
Tom's
very
going,
wet
this
year."
is not what we.
Well, and I think Trustee Stevens, you know, from a simplistic calculation, you can take the number of customers by the amount of money that we need to have in reserve, and you know, $18. I came up to very similar calculations, but probably, you know, $18, you know, $15 to $18 per bill.
Well, we can,
per household or customer.
And that would be
we can
assuming
prorate that too. I mean, it doesn't have to be a flat $18 across the board. It could be a percentage that it comes out to an average of 18.
Well, here's the problem though. If you're increasing someone's bill, just say 30 to 50% each month, and it's not even going to anything tangible like renewable water, we missed the boat somewhere along the lines as far as responsibly serving these customers.
Well, I would say that reliable pumps are tangible, you know, so.
I think you're gonna have to look at.
I would say that that's,
infrastructure. I mean, that's, yes, renewable water is absolutely important. So is, you don't wanna call it reuse, but whatever that is.
Anyway.
Any source of new water is incredibly important. But if your infrastructure crumbles, you can't get that water to your residents anyway. So it's a catch-22.
I think there's two topics. The mayor brought it up. First of all, we are going to have to look at rates. That's an absolute. And then secondary, worst-case scenarios of what this would implement, because again, Town Monument doesn't exist on just the west side. We've got a big demographics of people, and everybody puts some money into that, and it's pretty hard to articulate. If we get into debt up to here, and you live on the other side, well, why am I paying for something I will never see in a lifetime?
Well, that's why.
And let me finish, please.
Okay, sorry.
I think this is a very serious discussion when we start talking about reuse facilities, this and that. I'm going to say it, and not to ruffle feathers, but Tri-View's right down the street. They've got lines here, and again, we choose to be the big dog in the little pond, the big fish, and we don't want to play with other people. At what cost? At what cost? Because projects we're talking about are not in the hundreds of thousands, they're in the millions. In the millions. But you got to pay for these bills.
Sure.
Pay some way, somehow.
just to clarify, that $18 figure would be if we had nothing in reserve to start with.
Correct.
So.
And I would like to, as we go back, and again, my apologies for not having done it, but see what the average bill is running right now as well. And then, like you say, do the worst case scenario, best case scenario, and see, give you a hard figure for what the reserves would need to be, and go from there.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, I understood the way I read the covenants was that the billing was for the monument people that were using it. It was not affecting the Tri-View.
Correct.
This is not a bill towards the Tri-View and doesn't affect anybody that's on the Tri-View water system.
That's correct.
And I agree with you 100%, but infrastructures that Monument looks at impacts everybody financially. So when we write checks for 10 million, 12 million, 15 million, people that will never touch, see, or be empowered by it are paying for it.
I don't see how you go there.
Our residents, not
from the
Tri-View's
enterprise
residents.
fund.
Not from
The
the.
2A fund is sales tax based, so
And their portion's
that's
taken out.
town-wide. But I'm not discussing right now the 2A fund.
Well, but I'm talking in general terms. Everybody's got a vested interest, that's all I'm saying. But again, you've answered my question. Worst case scenario is you put 50%, this is worst case, and we know. That's all. And I think that's very fair.
There needs to be a point where we're going to put all our questions on the table and get all of our answers and then make a decision, because as of right now, as far as the monument, the west side and the water systems infrastructure, there's a lot of work to be done to support that. And we cannot afford to also just be reactive. We need to kind of move things along and make sure that we get our answers in a timely fashion. I'm not talking about you, Ms. Smith. I'm talking about make sure we bring our questions and not keep dragging this on, because we've got infrastructure here that we have got to maintain.
Well, last meeting we didn't have all this information. Now I have the information, so I had created my questions, but I was wrong in not sending it to the town attorney before the meeting.
And in all fairness, Mayor Pro Tem, I brought my questions. My questions weren't answered.
Exactly.
So don't be throwing rocks. I was expecting an answer. Very simple question.
My point is not to throw rocks. My point is that we can't afford to be in a reactive situation?
It might be, the water master plan was done, and then we had a change of boards, which would have been 2 years ago, before 2 years ago, April. That's what we're November. But then we had a new town manager and a new board, and the water master plan was rewritten several times to address some of those rate things that we had talked about. But again, that was a couple of years ago, going on 3 now, so maybe it's time.
Well, we need to revisit
for
it.
this
It's
board
a
to
whole
revisit.
different thing. I mean, that one addresses a reuse facility that we've since learned is not any way, shape, or form a possibility for the next decade. So, you know,
don't
it's,
believe we've done
that's,
that.
I don't think that's right.
No.
we've had that from
But-
the state. But anyway, I agree with you, Trustee Elliott. I mean, you know, we got to do something, but
Maybe
you know,
not this.
you don't rush into things like this. $1.8 million divided by, you know,
1,000
1,100 water customers, which I am one of them, about $1,700 a piece. You break that into 10 years, that's $170 a year. So, you know, it is a substantial amount of money for 2 projects. And how, you know, you want to go straight to it, how often or how long are we going to keep throwing money at a system that isn't connected to anyone else, and we're denying regional efforts? So we are actually denying regional
In defense
efforts.
How are
of
we denying
Mr.
it?
Tharnish, we are currently actively involved in a regional effort, which I think has been brought to the board in executive session.
I've seen nothing as far as any
And I
advancement
act-
forward towards anything.
And I
unless-
actually brought it up in the last meeting that
And it does include
What's
Triview and
Denola-
Water and Denola.
that Kip was coming to discuss
Yeah.
I
some of
look
those.
forward to hearing from them again, absolutely. I look
But there is-
more forward
So
to
I wouldn't
connecting
say
to an
that we're not
outside system.
involved.
So,
And
with
I
a
went to
regional idea.
I went to a CML meeting for a workshop and got to meet a lot of other mayors and trustees and council members, and the problems that we're experiencing with our water, so are they. And they are all very, very excited and interested in a regional cooperative effort. So I would like to have the ability to share some of those things that I learned at that workshop at perhaps the next meeting with everyone. It would be very encouraging for you all to hear about it, I think.
We have something similar on the next agenda,
great.
So no report?
if you want, but we have somebody coming to discuss that with us. In the last meeting, we arranged that.
Okay.
We all agreed.
I'll
Is
say,
there-
point of order, back to the ordinance.
Is there a motion on this ordinance? Seeing none, this motion fails for lack of a or this ordinance fails for lack of motion. Item number 7, resolution number 26-2018, a resolution appointing directors to fill vacancies on the Triview Metropolitan District number 3 Board of Directors. Ms. Corley.
If you recall, earlier this year, DOLA had contacted the town and asked if the board was interested in appointing directors to prevent this metro district from being dissolved. And the board didn't move forward with that at the time, and I notified DOLA. And then since then, we have received this letter in the mail, which was in your packet, asking you to appoint specific directors to this district. And I reached out to DOLA and then council for Triview Metro District number 3 just to find out what had kind of happened in the meantime. Since initially earlier this year, I was under the impression that the district was going to be dissolved if you did not appoint directors at that time. And I believe someone is here tonight from the district who may be able to answer that question.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Nicole Noah. I'm here on behalf of Triview Metro District number 3. If you'd like me to step up, I can answer any questions you guys might have.
Does the board have questions for Ms. Nowak?
I don't know. Were you done with?
I was just going to say, you do have the authority to appoint districts, so when a board is vacant, and what it looks like to me here is it's been a couple of years that they haven't, or more than that actually, that they have not had any directors to run the district, and so they're asking you to appoint directors who can actually take care of the district, and then they'll have to have a special election within 6 months to elect the next set of directors. And I believe it's because the property owners, there's been a couple of bankruptcies, and now there's a new property owner classic who is moving forward with developing the property. The service plan was approved back in 2006, so that would still be in effect, and I detailed in the memo. I think that initially they asked for a mill levy cap of 50, and the board at that time had limited it to 35 mills, 5 million in bonds, proposed debt mill levy of 8.8, and an O&M mill levy of 3 mills. So that was approved already back in 2006.
Am I correct in understanding that if we appoint these members to that board, that they are only on there until the special election that will be held within 6 months, unless they're elected?
Correct. So they could be elected again, but that's state statute that requires them to have an election within 6 months, a special election.
Can you refresh me on what came before us before? I thought that was a statement of dissolution because they had failed specific state criteria.
They had not submitted, I believe they're exempt from the audit requirement because they haven't done anything yet. 500,000 I think is the limit for that, but they're required to file a budget every year, and that hadn't happened. And then I don't think they had elections or directors in the past few years, and I believe, but that's just my assumption, that it probably had to do with the developers going bankrupt twice.
And then this board, essentially, we did what at that point, allowing that dissolution to go forward, if I remember correctly?
Well, when I was contacted by DOLA, the dissolution had been filed back in 2016, and then nothing had happened, and it can't be dissolved until the court issues an order. I've looked up the case and it just closed. So the last thing that was filed was the petition for dissolution, and then nothing since then, and the case is closed. So I don't know if it was because it was 2 years ago, or because there's a new developer now who's interested in moving forward with the project, that's why it's all coming up again.
So it's not dissolved?
It's not dissolved.
Even though we
What was our last action though?
You didn't take any action. So at that time, he was just asking, hey, are you interested? Because this would prevent the district from being dissolved.
And we just
But we said we
know
weren't interested, correct?
We're not.
We were not interested
in appointing directors.
at that time.
Correct. And now you're being asked to appoint,
Again.
Specific directors. Well, this is
for
from
another
the
owner.
developer.
From the developer's asking for this.
Correct.
Here's a question: who are these appointees, and where did they come from?
That would probably be a better question to be answered by.
And where were they before? Those are 3 questions.
And then my question would be, what happened if the board takes the same position that they did prior, that we choose not to take any action?
I believe that DOLA would have to initiate dissolution again. That case has been closed, so a petition for dissolution would have to be filed, or I don't know if there's some other scenario where directors could get appointed.
It's good, because I'm remembering now, this is coming back to me.
And this is Home Place Ranch originally, which was when we were in the old building. And it was quite a long annexation process and special district process.
I'm just excited I can remember that far back, so.
And is this, who's the developer?
Classic.
Classic Homes.
But they have
Trustee Koopman, would you
developers
restate
on
your
the
questions to Ms. Noack?
Who are these appointees? Where did they come from, and where were they before?
So it's actually, the developer is actually Challenger Homes.
Challenger, I'm sorry.
Oh, what?
It's okay. And Challenger Homes has selected these 5 individuals that work with the developer. And Challenger Homes has not been involved in this property until very recently, until probably 2017 at the earliest. And before that, I'm not sure who the developer was for this particular property.
And these are all, are they residents of this area? Is that who these people are? Or?
So these particular individuals are qualified to be directors because they entered into an agreement for the purchase and sale of real property in Tri-View Metro District number 3, and they're obligated to pay taxes under that property, under that
So
agreement.
they're employees of Challenger? these directors are employees of Challenger Homes?
I believe so. I am not certain. I can find that out. I can confirm that with you.
I have a question for our attorney, please. And I apologize, this is a dumb question, but am I making an assumption that it is a guarantee or already a given that Home Place Ranch is a metro district? Or we approve it, or if we just let this go, that's not necessarily the case?
Home Place, right, so Triview Metro District number 3 is already in existence.
Right.
You approved that, not
Okay.
you, but the board approved
Right.
that over 10 years ago.
So again, if we don't get involved in this, and it goes back and it's dissolved, then what happens?
They come back and they ask you to form a new Metro District. They have to, I guess, go back through some of the
That might
same
be
work
better.
that they already did again.
And are we obligated to do that? And I'm gonna ask this question and being very, very direct. These metro districts are getting out of control. And I'm on the record of saying that, they are. And we've seen some challenges and difficulties and I'm asking, is the board, do we have the obligation to?
Well, there's state statute criteria that a service plan has to meet in order for you to approve it. So it would depend on what's in the service plan that's being presented before you, whether you should.
So based on that criteria, we're mandated if it meets that criteria?
I don't know that the statute has language that says may or shall, that it's that specific one way or the other. I don't know if there's any case law where municipalities have been sued for not approving a metro district that someone else challenges and says, hey, it met the criteria and you should have approved it. I don't know that off the top of my head.
And then a secondary question, this development, this hasn't come to the board yet, this development? Plan Commission, have we, I don't.
My understanding is that Home Place Ranch has submitted an application for development with the planning department, but I don't know where it is in that process.
So
If they're just having discussions or.
So why would we be jumping approving a metro
Right,
district
right,
when
right.
the development is not even approved?
Yep.
This is the cart before the horse.
The metro district is already in existence.
But we have not approved the development, although the rumor from the developer is it's approved, hasn't come to the board.
Our action was to let it dissolve.
Right. So all I'm saying
I
is.
believe the development has already been approved. The site plan hasn't come before us yet.
I don't know, I'm sorry, and Jennifer.
I don't think, I don't.
Larry,
Ms.
are not
Randy,
here.
I don't know. I
to
can
answer
honestly
where
say
Home
I
Place
don't know.
Ranch is in the process. I believe that they've at least had discussions with the planning department and possibly have submitted an application of some sort, which is why, you're being asked to.
But the
appoint
planning
directors.
commission has not made a recommendation, yea, nay, or otherwise, or voted, which means it has not come to the board.
Correct, that's my understanding.
So, again, I'm gonna come right back and say it's the cart before the horse.
So if we don't appoint these 5 people, 4 of residents of Colorado Springs and 1 of Castle Rock, if we don't appoint these folks tonight, does that have any sort of implication on the timeline of moving forward with Home Place Ranch when we're not sure about where things stand with what's been submitted to the planning department because they're not here tonight?
It would probably be a question for the developer as to the impact of the metro district on the moving forward with the development.
Well, in order for the district to become an active district, because currently it's inactive, there needs to be a board of directors. And since there isn't a board, the district can't do anything. So we're just trying to prepare for when the developer can proceed with developing the property. And once the board is appointed, then the board has to go through another set of statutory requirements in order to become active again. So it's just a matter of timing at this point. That'll take time, so we want to get the board in place while the development is getting approved.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this metro district just is for road improvement, so they wouldn't be providing services because they're in the big Triview.
I guess
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
The only comment I'm gonna make is, and although it's not written in stone from the planning commission, but we take their guidance very seriously. And if they're only reviewing at this time and something's coming to us now, for myself, this trustee, I would abstain. Because again, I'm not allowing, correct protocol to occur. If something's already there, I like to see it go through the correct protocol. So I have a difficulty understanding this procedure.
Okay.
And that might just be me.
Yeah,
No,
so this
I'm having
service plan,
trouble too.
you've already, the town has already created a metro district?
I understand that.
Okay.
But the town has not approved this development, nor does the planning.
That's
Or-
correct.
So again, until the planning department does what they do, comes to us, I don't see why this would hold up or deny or otherwise. And I'm asking, I'm not saying.
Okay, I guess I see it as somewhat of a separate issue that the metro district has already been created, and already exists, so they're asking you to appoint a board of directors.
But it was, okay.
But-
No, I see, okay.
I don't know, maybe I'm missing the.
No, maybe I'm missing, it might be me,
question.
might be me.
If I may just interject for a minute, Trustee Bornstein, I think maybe part of the issue is the developer will not proceed if it does not receive the permits that it needs to move the development along. But once the developer does have that approval from the Board of Trustees, then the district needs to step in and start that process of doing what it needs to do as a district. But if there's not a board of directors in place, the district can't do that. So once you approve that development plan, nothing can happen still because the district isn't active.
But at that point, we could have more knowledge and more information and have it go through the planning committee, and then we could decide that.
Well, the developer's intention is to do this simultaneously to save time
Oh.
because it'll take
Yeah.
a while.
So this is easier for the developer.
Yeah, they want the benefits of a metro district.
Yeah, okay.
But we've already approved the metro district.
No, I understand that, but.
So that's where I'm
And,
confused.
and they let it fail and flounder,
But,
so.
and again, in all fairness, I know nothing about the plan development, and I want to keep it that way. I want to let the planning do their part, and it comes to the board.
So if Triview Metro District number 3 didn't exist, this would still be happening simultaneously. What the developer would be doing is trying to get their development plan approved while also creating a metro district. But this metro district is already in place, saves money, saves time.
But reality, it can go through planning, be approved, whatever, then it can come to the board, be approved, whatever, then you can appoint your directors and still do the same process. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You answered my questions.
Thank you so much. Mine too.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from the board? Do I have a motion on this resolution? Resolution number 26-2018 fails due to a lack of motion. Discussion item, code enforcement. I know Ms. Smith asked for some direction on this. Ms. Smith, did you get sufficient feedback
I
or?
heard from Trustee Elliott and Trustee Clark, and forwarded that. It was this afternoon.
Oh, this was the
So,
one that
yeah,
you sent a
just
week
today.
ago.
No, but there was two.
Oh.
There was one today as well.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
my apologies.
I got, the first one I sent out, I got 0.
Okay.
The second one, I heard from Trustee Clark and Trustee Elliott. Trustee Elliott saying, go ahead and post it on social media and the website. Trustee Clark suggesting that instead of the code action coming to me to kind of keep track of and respond to, that it go directly to the police department. And that's the one I sent back and said, that's historically not been the job of the police department unless it affects public safety or health. So the direction I'm looking for is, where do you all want to go with this? And do you want it on social media? I mean, there's been some discussion, Jake and I have sat and talked about it, is it better to have it out on social media that we currently don't have a code enforcement officer?
Advertise
Is that
it.
inviting people to break code? Or is that more proactive, saying we don't have it email me with your questions and we'll do our best to get them addressed. But then we need to know kind of going forward what direction you want to take as well.
What about just direction to contact you and then you determine what goes to the police department and elsewhere? And not state, and not just state, we don't have a code enforcement officer, but actually just for code enforcement, contact
Just
you.
if you have a code question, speak to me, or if it's health and safety, yeah.
And will you have time to do that with all the, will you have time to do that with all the rest of the stuff you're doing?
Well, I'll have to make time.
What was?
We don't have, I've got 4, maybe 5.
Weeds.
You know, in the last,
well, if you feel good about it.
The end of, I don't feel great about it, but, I mean, it needs to go forward and the citizens need to be addressed. I mean,
we need to address it.
What is, sorry, Trustee Clark, what was your suggestion, the PD?
Yeah, let the PD.
Why is that not an option?
I don't think we should have the police involved unless it's a health and safety issue. Because
Well, they're the only ones that can enforce our codes.
Right. That's what I thought too.
You can't enforce our codes?
The way the code's written right now, it says code enforcement officer, and also for abating nuisances. And Laura, help me out here, I may have misread it. It requires it to come back to the board for a hearing, or for somebody to have a hearing on it.
It is very specific about what is required to come back to the board.
Okay.
But the police department does have full authority to enforce the entire municipal code, whether it designates a code enforcement officer or not.
Okay.
You do have the authority to write anything under the whole municipal code.
And if I could just say that if I had a policeman come to my door and tell me that I needed to enforce something or do something, I would do it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, most people's reaction, I think, would be to do it.
Well, what about the tracking? And there must be some sort of documentation where if there's a particular complaint, who responded, when did they respond, and what was...
Well, that's all the stuff that the lady was doing.
Right.
The contracted person was doing.
So that's my concern, is if it's not written down, it's not done.
We had software that tracked all that. I don't even know that we still have it. I probably haven't renewed it in the last couple of years. Right now, it's just emails. I've got the emails and I'm responding as best, but the bigger question is, what do you want me to say basically to the public?
How many are we getting a week?
I've gotten 4 since the contract stopped, which was end of June.
Half of one a
And
week.
without saying names or locations, what are these 4 related to? If you could share.
Parking situations, like somebody's, just for instance, got an RV parked on the street that it's not legal. Or weeds are always an issue. Susie, who was the code enforcement officer that we contracted with, was in the middle of a rather large dispute over here at the other end of this side of town. But it's weeds, it's things parked where they shouldn't be, basketball hoops in the wrong, it's not a very efficient use of the police department. In the past, we've never actually used them. We have talked about it over the years, but it's why initially, back when Cindy was first hired, way back, she was a code enforcement officer. And then when Cindy got promoted, Laura came on as code enforcement. And then Laura got promoted, and that's when Susie came in with the contract. So it's not a position we've done a lot with, but it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I know the last thing you want to do is code enforcement, but if it's weeds or something, I mean, usually the code enforcement person's going to go out as a courtesy and say, you need to cut this down, you need to move this. I think something was parked in Walmart, and I think you all went out and put a ticket on it or something. I'm not real sure. There was a vehicle, a lot of it's vehicle, let's say somebody had a vehicle on the side of the road that was disabled. You have to have a license plate. You can't just have something parked there with no license plate, active license plate, things of that nature. The complaints they're especially coming into winter, they're few and far between.
I mean, the good news is, next month there won't be weeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get a weed break.
So if we're looking at 2 a month, 2 complaints a month, which is about what you said.
Well, I can
I
take
don't
complaints, I can respond to the person, but I can't fix the problem. I mean,
Right.
when I say I respond, I'm gonna say, yes, I got your email, I'm sorry, we don't have a code enforcement officer. I'm not gonna go out there and say, cut your weeds. Maybe
So
that's what you thought
why
I was
don't
gonna
we
do,
have-
and no, that's not what I'm volunteering to do.
So why don't we have the police department take care of it until we get somebody in place?
No, that's,
And then I guess the next question would be, how do we want to advertise this? Do we advertise it with,
well, again,
if we have somebody taking care of it, then we don't have to worry about advertising that we don't have code enforcement in
Right,
place.
right.
Agree.
I don't, yeah, I would
So
agree.
I would just say we
And I would put
start
the
advertising.
only key-
forward code to, right now.
forward code to the PD with the caveat that PD, if it becomes overwhelming and you guys are spending all day, every day chasing 8-foot tall weeds, of the residential variety, let us know. I mean, there's no need that we need to overburden you with things like this, you know.
We'll certainly take the direction of the board and do whatever the board wants us to do. Obviously, we'll do that. I don't have a tracking system, so I don't know how to track them. One of the issues I see, and we'll probably work it out, but with a single point of contact for a code, you have one consistent person. I have 15 of us out there that he may handle it this way, you're gonna handle it a different way, you're gonna handle it a different way, so there's not gonna be any consistency. Now, we'll work it out if that's the direction the board wants to go.
What's the availability of a reserve officer to take on
Right.
some extra time?
Or I was just gonna say, you just showed us some really great explorers out there. You know what? They know how to control a
Deputize them
situation.
to write tickets.
I think that would be my vote.
Especially the one that was
Come on,
already doing
Chief.
it, the car.
I don't, the reserve officer has to work under the direction of a regular officer.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's part of the state law now. That doesn't mean he can't be out there as a solo car, but he has to have another officer on duty, available at all times for that reserve officer. I don't know that we.
When you
Remember,
say
these
on
reserve
duty-
officers- These reserve officers are there because they want to do police work. And it's a great benefit to us. I just don't feel comfortable telling this brand new reserve officer, oh, by the way, go tell these people to do weeds. That's not why they're here. I'd rather give it to a normal officer that's here for a paycheck than a reserve officer that's here to do police work.
Well, and that's,
We'll deal with it.
but that's why I was asking, is it something we could offer them hours and pay to do, as we would our regular officers? And
No.
somebody's gonna be on patrol anyways,
No,
correct?
because he is only commissioned as a reserve officer.
Okay.
It's a different level of training. He's not a regular officer pursuant to state law.
Okay.
Maybe a suggestion is, and Pam sharing with us, I mean, the numbers are limited, and again, not being funny, but the weeds aren't gonna dissipate here in the next 30, 45 days. Maybe we can just kind of track for maybe the next 30 days and see what we got.
Okay.
And then just determine accordingly. I mean, obviously, parkings and things like that, obviously go to the police department, but I think we're gonna get a window to really
break here.
define this on the weeds. Because, I mean, there's already snow up the mountains, it's starting to get colder, so that's good news.
So
Not the
do
air
we have,
conditioning yet?
do we have an agreement from the board to pursue posting this position? And is it a full-time position with code enforcement being part-time? And
Well,
other duties? Or is
I
it?
think you're getting into to micromanaging, with all due respect.
Okay.
I don't think that's a position, that's something the town manager, or the new interim town manager, or the
Yeah.
whomever, you know,
Do it.
should do.
Decide.
I don't think that's something the board should do as far as writing job descriptions, which we have.
Okay.
Whether it's full-time or part-time, in the past, it's been observed that it's really a part-time position. And that's been me and other people. People that have actually done it said if it was done correctly, it would be a full-time position. So I think that needs to be determined, and one of the things I've heard you say you want this interim person to do is look at each department and the workload and what's necessary, and I think that falls under that. So I think especially coming into winter, if we can just track it for 30 days, you get the interim on board, and they can take responsibility for that as part of looking at.
And if it gets out of control, we can revise accordingly.
Yeah, it's like
So-
I say, I think I've got 4,
So-
maybe 5.
So our direction would, it's just that the police department will handle any serious issues.
Vehicle-related?
Vehicle related,
You know,
that's.
vehicle related. There's certain types of vehicle related work that we can, certainly. There's other types where it's not really a safety related issue.
Well,
I have no
if
problem
we're
doing
only
whatever
talking,
the board wants us to do. If it's health and safety, we'll absolutely do it. If you want us involved in weeds, we'll do that too.
well, if we're only talking about 2 a month and one of them's weeds and one of them's vehicle, you could probably handle the vehicle ones, correct?
We could, yes, sir.
Okay.
You know, maybe, I mean, we have a meeting in 2 weeks. Maybe you can come back to us, the chief can come back and, hey, how many have we had?
This is what we've got, and this is
Yeah, maybe
what
we'll have none.
for.
You know, it's, and I think that's a good point for the interim to assess what we really need, what the positions. But
So we don't want to move forward with posting this at
I
this
think
time.
with the seasonal and.
I think it's
we-
premature.
Yeah, I think with
Let's
the
not
seasonal,
post
like, from what's
Okay.
being shared, I don't think it's
Wait,
a
I think
necessity.
that's something you should have your interim person do.
And we
Okay.
talked about waiting until budget time as well
I think
to
it's a-
incorporate
I think
a
it's a better
full-time
idea.
position that would be inclusive of.
Because right now, under
Code
code
plus.
enforcement is 19,000 a year. And that's spaced over, I mean, Susie did more in the summer and less in the winter. An employee obviously is gonna be a lot more than that. So, again, it is a budget consideration, but I think more than that, it's a consideration of staffing. How do we look at interim staffing?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, would you be willing to take assignment of the weeds until we appoint somebody?
I can put
Have
out
some
on,
other
or have to put
duties.
out, I can't personally do it, but on social media, if you have an issue with code, forward it right now to me. I'll keep track of those, and anything vehicle related, I'll get with the police department on if it's something they can handle. The issues here in town, I'm not sure where we're at with that one, I'll have to pull that up and look. But, and then at the next meeting, I will give you a little summary of code, where we're at with that.
So you feel you have your direction?
I think so.
The board's good.
That sounds good, Pam.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm not shy about just doing it, so, but I think I heard you say, go ahead and put it on social media to contact me. Jake and I will work through what's appropriate, what's not. And then at the next meeting, I will give you a report on what code requests have come in.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, public comments for items not on the agenda. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi there, trustees, mayor. My name's Haley. I'm from Tri-Lakes Cares, and I wanted to share some happy news with you. We are getting ready to graduate another class of Getting Ahead students that will go through our self-sufficiency program, Getting Ahead, and it will be taking place the beginning of October on the 3rd at 6 p.m. It will be located in Big Red, down in the Learning Center downstairs. Several of you have had the opportunity to come to Getting Ahead graduation and learn a little bit more about that program. I'd like to extend that invite to you guys again, and those of you that haven't had the opportunity yet to come learn a little bit more. The Getting Ahead program is our STAR Self-Sufficiency program. We're currently the only organization in the Pikes Peak region that is running it. District 11 looks like they'll be running a class later on in the school year for parents of the kiddos who are going to Queen Palmer Elementary. But we've been running it for several years now. We run 2 classes a year, graduating between 5 and 12 at a time. It's a small class where individuals learn the difference between poverty, middle class, and wealth. They learn about the hidden rules that exist within each of those classes. They learn about planning a future story. A lot of the time, clients who live in situations of poverty are often dealing with turmoil and instances in car repair and daycare and needing to get to work, and then they're sick and they don't have income, and they're always living in the tyranny of the moment. So the Getting Ahead program teaches them about building a future story. And if you can plan for the future, that involves saving for the future. If you don't have a future story, you're not saving for the future. And part of that is also problems with having finances saved for these unplanned circumstances that people go through. They need new tires on the car, or they have a medical bill that comes up. So anyway, the Getting Ahead program is a wonderful program that we're very proud to be able to offer to our community, and the opportunity for our investigators to showcase their storyboards and tell you about their future story, for you to learn a little bit about how it impacts them and how we're actually taking community members and moving them and giving them the tools and the knowledge to make changes in their life for them and their family that can progress them in the future to a better path. So if you are interested, please let me know. We are keeping a head count so we can plan as food is provided, but I'd be happy to have you guys all there. It gives an opportunity for them to interact with some other fellow community members, and we just wanted to express that invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to my colleagues, I've attended several of these, and they are the most moving graduations you could ever be at, the success and what have you. I encourage everybody to get to them.
So my wife and I went to the last one, and it was grand to see the progress that the students had made within the class and where they were planning on going to next.
They're tear jerkers, and lots of tears.
I think it's a good opportunity, because someone had asked me, because I saw you getting out of your car, and I said something that's Haley from Try Next Cares. What a great job you personally do and your organization does and your volunteers. I mean, for them to step up and do what they do for this community is, I'm just always astounded by how wonderful it is.
Thank you.
It's appreciated.
And you all help make that possible with your support of our organization as well, so thank you.
And for those of you, it worked for Trustee Bornstein. They do serve cake if you want to go. Any other public comments? Seeing none. Board authorization items. Does the staff have any? Doesn't look like it.
I had sent something out again this afternoon, sorry, but about doing an RFP for an attorney.
Yes.
Or if you all want to just get a list of attorneys and interview them, the advantage of an RFP is you're asking the same criteria and questions from every single person, so you're not getting somebody that can do land use and police questions.
I was under the impression that we would discuss that briefly in our personnel matters executive session.
I'm sorry.
Does the board have any board authorization items?
I just have one, Mr. Mayor. We had a discussion at the last meeting. We talked about being proactive and having the board meet with directors individually regarding their wants, needs, projections for the budget. And then we can sit and assess, because again, there's only so much, and it is the board's responsibility to allocate those dollars, and then our staff implements. I'd like to see these begin before this month's out, because obviously we need to see the police, we need to see public works, we need to see as far as the other internals of the building. So I'd really like to see these get going. A minimum, probably about 2 hours minimum per director. And this is board and director, and then let them tell us what they want, need, and why, and all those great things.
So do we do that in a special meeting or workshop?
It would probably have to be a special meeting or a workshop. It might be better as a workshop.
And then to schedule it almost like an interview where X director at this time, and then 2 hours.
Yeah, and
2 hours later.
Maybe to be aggressive, maybe we can knock these, some commitment from the board, obviously, but we can knock these out before the month is over. So we're ahead of the game, because I think the board then is going to have to meet and go, hey, look, they want this, they want this. Yeah. And I don't want to use the word pick and choose, but we're going to have to be strategic. There's a lot of things on the table.
Wouldn't we want our new interim on board when we go through that process?
Well, we can assume that we'll have our new interim on board.
I'm going to be
pretty quick.
Hopeful.
Well, I heard you saying before the end of the month, and I wasn't really sure on the timing of the interim.
So
Boy, I have a lot of hope for that, though.
Yeah.
Can we
look at the calendar.
Do you want to leave it up to me to set up a special meeting?
Yeah, that'd be excellent. Thank you.
Workshop, probably.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a special.
Will there be cake?
Any other board authorizations? Seeing none. Mr. Bishop, would you announce executive session?
Board of Trustee comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. Board of Trustee comments.
I just want to say, although we probably have to work on our fine-tuning of the process and how we communicate up here, I'm appreciative of the dialogue amongst the board members. I think it's absolutely critical. What it says, whether we agree or disagree with particular items, what it says is that we're not just rubber stamping things and that we're actually communicating and walking through each of our individual concerns. And the reality is, if it's a concern for one, it should be valid and heard. And I think we've been doing a great job of that. So I'm encouraged by the dialogue we've had, especially tonight. I think we've been told many times if we all just voted yes and said nothing, someone's doing something wrong. So I'm encouraged by the dialogue. So thank you all.
Any other board comments?
Yes, I'd like to thank Ms. Corley for your service, and I wish you the best of luck in the future with your new opportunity, and we really appreciate your support. And it's been a pretty rocky time around here, and we appreciate you hanging in with us, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
I second that.
Any other board comments? Okay, Mr. Bishop.
Yes, do we have a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402 for a discussion of a personnel matter in regard to interim town manager and town attorney?
Motion to enter into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024F, discussion of a personnel matter. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Fruitman?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.